And finally, thank you for the candidates for coming. In alphabetical order. Elizabeth Childs from Brookline, RPC chair, and a certified psychologist for adult and young. And Fetherson, who has a title, I found a title, former candidate for state rep. He has a lot of titles. I found this one.
Nobody's done as much in municipal government as that, so we can just, I'm a municipal
Next.
person.
Mr. Christopher Lyon, who is a political consultant in different states, and Mr. James Lyon, chairman of the MAGOP GOP, and Mr. Ron Winning, who is an entrepreneur, a consultant, and a lot more. So let's the Carlisle Republican Town Committee is happy to provide this forum to the candidates. We are here to learn as much as we can about their views and goals to lead the MAGOP GOP in the future. We expect to learn who among you to keep current priorities, or who, why, what, and how to change them. Where do you stand on the issues that we find important? This is to be a casual meeting and not to be a debate between the candidates. So the rules are very simple. Each candidate gets time for a 3 minutes long, uninterrupted introductory speech. After that, the floor is open to question from the audience. If nobody asks. The questioner from the audience should introduce himself, herself, and can decide if she wants to address the question to anyone or all of the candidates. All questions are limited to 1 minute in total. No speeches from the audience. Some questions may only require a simple yes or no answer, and dependent on the answer given, a follow-up question may be asked. In all cases, the questions are limited to 1 minute in total. An individual answer from one candidate is limited to max 3 minutes. So in total, one question with answers can last no more than 16 minutes. If there is a question that any of you wish to answer, do not wish to answer, just say, I skip this. And finally, while I expect many questions from the audience, I also have received a long list of questions in writing. So many that given our time constraint, we will not be able to go through them. So if you wish to do so, then please answer any or all on this list by Monday evening. I will provide you all the list of of the questions, and I will distribute them to everybody who is gathering here. And maybe these questions and the answers can be useful for the future chairman. The most important information is the restroom is the other side of the room, of the hall, the other side of the hall. So you need to go out. And refreshment available on the buffet table, homemade cookies. So valuable literature you can find at the back of the room from the Hillsdale College. So anyone who wish, just take it. So let's begin the conversation. So left to right, right to left. Whatever. Okay?
I was just gonna say, how about ladies
Ladies
first?
first.
Ladies first? Okay.
Just one thing, I will raise my hand when you have 30 seconds left.
Thank you. That's wonderful.
Yes, she's the time.
Okay. So, did you want me to start? Okay, I can start whenever? Okay. I think I'll stand up just so I can see people. Hi, thank you so much for coming, and thank you, Kate, for holding this. I am Elizabeth Childs, and I'm from Brookline, the Brookline Republican Town Committee Chair, and I've lived there for over 30 years. I have my husband here, Ralph, who's a retired Navy veteran, and our son continues in that service as an ensign of the Coast Guard. He's actually serving on the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Northland, doing interdiction down in the Caribbean. And our daughter is in college and doing research at the MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston, Texas. So I'm the RTC chair there. I'm also a member of town meeting. I'm a former member of the Brookline School Committee. And I'm the former Massachusetts Mental Health Commissioner appointed by Governor Romney. Additionally, I serve as the vice chair of the Norfolk County Advisory Board currently. I decided to run for chair because I think we can do better. I was very disappointed with November's election, and I want us to succeed because we actually have values that we live by, that are important to us, and our conservative values make the world makes more sense that way. And we can convince people that it is a better way of living. I have relevant experience that I think will help us get there. I've been the chair in Brookline for 4.5 years. In 2018, our Republican registration in Brookline was 1,100. In 2022, it was 1,800. We grew from a committee of 8 to 10 people to a full voting complement of 35 members, with 35 to 40 affiliate and associate members waiting to get on. We are the benefactor sponsors of Brookline Day. We're active in our local politics, and we got 18 members elected to town meeting this last May. Additionally, I ran for Congress. I lost, but I learned more by losing than I possibly could have learned by winning. And the thing I'm most proud of is that I was able to raise money across the Republican spectrum, which is what we need to do now. And I had a team that was the cross-section of the Big Ten of the Republican Party, and they hung together throughout the entire race. I raised over $200,000 for a primary, and I'm very proud of that record, and I feel really strongly that I could help new candidates understand why it is worth it to run. And lastly, as the Commissioner of Mental Health, I was responsible for 5,000 employees and $1 billion worth of funding. So I'm not intimidated by change, leading organizational change. I'm not intimidated at all by doing what we need to do for the Mass GOP. I am prepared to be bold and be responsible with leading change. We need to be ready to adopt change because we can succeed as a party here. There's no reason we can't. And I will stop in 2 seconds. I did bring a little literature, and I put it at the very back. I hope that's okay, Kate. Just put my bio sketch back there and the letter. And I have a website, elizabethchildsmd.com. Please feel free to check me out. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you. You know, people say there aren't any Republicans in Massachusetts, and then maybe they need to come to Carlisle. If you guys can just take one of these, pass it around if you want. Good evening. I'm John Featherston. I live in the town of Ashland. You guys have probably heard me on radio or seen me on TV over the years with All Politics is Local. My reason to be here tonight is the Mass GOP and my friend Jim Lyons, and Jim is a friend of mine. I don't agree with Jim on everything, but that's okay. I think that builds good politics. But if we're going to rebuild the party in Massachusetts, which everybody in this room wants to do, wouldn't you all agree that it has to start on the local level? We have municipal elections starting in 60 days in Massachusetts. Who's your candidate for Board of Selectmen? Who's your candidate for school committee? If we're going to stop the woke agenda in Massachusetts, the only way we're going to stop it is on the local level. Maura Healey got elected governor, and shame on us for allowing that to happen. Shame on us for allowing that to happen. Karen Spilka, who was the Senate president, is a lifelong friend of mine. I was on the school committee with her. Do you think that she's not going to promote Maura Healey's agenda into my local area, into my local schools, into my local board of selectmen? The only way we're going to stop this is by working on the local level. Today, this next election cycle, do we have candidates? It doesn't appear that we do have candidates ready to run. We're all embarrassed right now by the headlines we see in the newspapers. We're all like, hey, I'm a Republican, but I don't want my friends to know. Shame on us. I'm a proud Republican. I was born a proud Republican. I grew up in Massachusetts and never strayed from it. Doesn't help that I look like Mike Pence either, you know? So I can't run away from it. But this is me. I'm a Republican. Karen Spilka knows that I'm a Republican. Elizabeth Warren knows that I'm a Republican. I was with Maura Healey just yesterday. She knows I'm a Republican and said to me, are you going to take over the Mass GOP party? They know me. They respect me. They fear me. Okay? But that doesn't matter, because all that matters is the local level. We have to establish dominance at the local level. If we do nothing else, let's stop the drag shows in our schools and put Republicans on our committees. Let's put a board of selectmen that can just be semi-balanced. They don't even have to be ultra-conservative, but let's look at the bottom line. I'm John Featherston. I'm probably not going to be the next chair of the Republican Party, but I'm here to help and I'm not going anywhere. Thanks for coming today.
Everyone else has stood up, so I guess I'll stand up. Although it's going to make it difficult for me to read, so maybe I'll hold this up. Kate, thank you, and thank you to the Carlisle Republican Town Committee for hosting this forum. Thank you too for inviting me to participate. I'm happy to be here. It's always great to be among such great Republicans. I look forward to coming back again, and even more times as we work together to build the necessary infrastructure to rebuild the GOP in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I am a bottom line guy. This is the way I see this race. If defeating Jim Lyons is your highest priority, you're probably supporting Amy Carnevale for state GOP chair. If defeating Charlie Baker and running his inner circle out of the party, you're probably supporting Jim Lyons for chairman. But if you really want to defeat Democrats and make electing more Republicans our unambiguous mission, I am your guy. I'm not running against Jim Lyons, Amy Carnevale, or any of the other candidates here tonight. I am running for you, the activists across this Commonwealth, and the people of Massachusetts who believe in freedom, personal responsibility, lower taxes, limited government, law and order. We deserve a state party that works. We must have a state party that defeats Democrats. My name is Christopher Lyon. Winning campaigns is what I do. I am a political professional. In 2014, I helped David DeCoste win an upset victory for state representative. Rep. DeCoste is the last Republican challenger to beat an incumbent Democrat in a House race. This year, during an election cycle when virtually every Republican candidate for office did less well, Rep. DeCoste doubled his margin of victory from 2020 and won every town in the 5th Plymouth district for the first time ever, despite having a self-funding candidate who spent $170,000 in personal money against him. I'm a thoroughly political person. I worked for George H.W. Bush. I've worked for Phil Gramm in Texas. I worked for Rudy Giuliani in New York City. I've worked for Jim Gilmore when he got elected governor of Virginia in a landslide. I believe I offer the best opportunity for the Republican Party to reverse its current course. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Kate and Robert, thank you, and thank you for coming out. Thank you, Bernadette. 5th night in a row we've been out across the state, and I appreciate everyone coming, and no one is more grateful to see these candidates up here. And what each one of them want to do is exactly what I want to do. But unfortunately, folks, as someone that served in the legislature for 8 years and have served as your party chair for 4, that can't be done yet. There's one step missing. And what I'm going to share with you a little bit is how bad the Republican Party really is. No one that's sitting at this table or sitting at these chairs should have to go through what the Republican leadership put me through for 4 years. From the day I was elected chairman in 2019, the higher-ups have literally made my life miserable. There's no excuse for it. It's one thing for us to disagree on issues. It's another thing to be totally sabotaged. And that's what happened. Ron Kaufman's aide, Ron Kaufman is the national committee man for the state of Massachusetts Republican. His aide, the night before my election, on January 3rd of 2021, my re-election, put a post out that Jim Lyons is a pedophile. Charlie Baker's aide, Brian Wynn, in the spring of 2021, worked with attorneys, worked with Jim Conroy, Ron Kaufman, Matt Sisk, Brian Wynn, and others to put out a false narrative that Jim Lyons is a racist and a bigot. None of these people should have to go through that, but that's what they put me through. Within 30 days of me becoming elected chair, there was a so-called PAC, 60 days, a PAC form called the Massachusetts Independent Expenditure PAC. Massachusetts Independent Expenditure PAC. It was formed, it's the so-called Baker PAC. 2 nights ago, I was in Pittsburgh with 3 state rep candidates that I helped. I also helped this gentleman here, Rodney Cleaves, not as much as we could have, but we helped him. And every one of these 4 candidates, all Republicans, one of them is a guy named Bruce Chester, African-American Iraqi war veteran, who had run in 2020. He ran again in 2022. He lost 53 to 47. $27,000 was paid by the independent expenditure, so-called Baker PAC, to support the Democrat. Folks, my job is to clean this up. I'm going to run for 1 more year. I'm going to clean this up so these folks can come in and help me build this party, because we can defeat Democrats. But we have to be united, we have to be a team, and we have to know that the enemy within is destroying us. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank Kate. I would like to thank the members of her committee, and I'd like to thank the other town committee chairmen who are here as well. As the former city committee chair of Medford, I know how difficult it is. It's one of those no good deed goes unpunished, right? Being a chairman of a city or town committee. So I appreciate your service. I'm going to say something. Some of the other candidates have hinted at it, and we talked about it privately also too, but I'm going to make a statement that is equally as bold as it is humbling. I am likely the most qualified person to be chairman of the Republican Party. But at the same time, I'm also the least likely person to be elected chairman of this party. And you know why? It's an insider game. We were saying earlier, it's like high school. You call a state committee member up, you want to talk to them, you want to share your values, what you're interested in, ideas that you might have for changing the party, and they either don't call you back, or they don't want to talk to you, or they say, oh, I'm voting for this person or that person. It's like, wait a second, but did you listen to what I had to say? Are you open to changing? No. How are we ever going to move forward if we're going to be stuck in the mud? I don't know about you, but if things fail, why do we repeat them? Why don't we want to do something new, something different? Now, when I spoke with Jim before, Jim had no idea that I was 52 years old. So, I'm Ron Vining, I'm 52 years old. I feel like I'm in an AA meeting when I say
He had no
that.
idea that I was 50 years old.
That's right. But I've been around this party for a long time. The first race that I worked on was in 1986. I just want to tell you a little bit about myself. So I mentioned that I was a Medford chair. I was on the Medford School Committee. I won in a district that was 9-1 Democrat to Republican. I ran for state rep in that same district when I was 23 years old. Unfortunately, I lost, similar to as Elizabeth was just mentioning. But you know what? I learned a lot in that election. And in that year, of all the losers, I actually got the most votes of any challenger contesting. Whoa, all right, great. But you know what? We celebrate these things, but no, we have to start getting some victories. And so I have been in Singapore for the past 13 years. So if you're probably like, who's this fresh face? No, I was involved for a long time before I moved. And I'm back now. And I want to take what I did in Singapore for corporations, I want to apply that to my prior political experience, and I want to develop the state party, as John was mentioning, first at the municipal level, so we build that farm team, so we can start winning in 2024. Because if we don't start winning now, we're always going to remain losers.
Thank you for the opening statement, and we are going forward. I will put 4 quick questions for the candidates. After there will be 1 question from the audience, Doreen, and later Chuck, from Chuck. And after, if we will have from the audience, we will ask from the audience. If not, I will have plenty of questions. So, first question is, please describe what specific role you had in the 22 election campaign, in whose campaign, and which ballot question you participated in, and what was the result. So please.
You want me to start?
Yeah.
Okay. So in the 2022 election campaign, you're talking local. You're talking Massachusetts, right? Massachusetts. So I worked hard for Chris Doty when he was running for governor, and then when he did not make it in the primary, I worked for Jeff Deal.
Okay.
And I supported Rayla Campbell and Jay McMahon. Jeff couldn't come to my house for the event, but Leah Allen did, and Jay McMahon came a couple times, and Rayla, we hosted them.
Oh, so we just see.
So, yep, and our Republican Town Committee we have precinct captains, and we work on sign delivery for all Republican candidates across the state, who are running. We did not have any legislative candidates state rep or state senator candidates for our district.
Your
Yes.
district.
Yes. And then on the ballot questions, we collected signatures for the No on 4 campaign, the illegal immigrant question, and we collected quite a few of those actually. And then we also did a Facebook review of all of the ballot questions and put that out to the community of positions on all 4 ballot questions. And in particular, we spoke to a lot of local liquor store owners about the 2 question, because that was a very important question. And so the
So
liquor.
you did a lot.
We tried very hard to work on all 4 of those ballot questions, yeah.
The result,
Yeah, and we collect signatures for all the candidates. Any candidate who asks us, we will collect for them.
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for the question. I'm no longer the chair of the Ashland Republican Town Committee, but I was for a decade. So when the election cycle started, of course, any Republican is welcome inside the Ashland Republican Town Committee. So we did host forums both for Mr. Deal and for Mr. Doty, and we, kind of kept an open mind until the primary was done. Else, a lot of you probably know Mr. Lyons and I did a podcast for past GOP,
Yes,
where we interviewed a lot of the
I saw it,
candidates.
yeah.
I was very strong boots on the ground for question 4. Question 4 was very, very near and dear to my heart. You can go to my Facebook page and see how many events that I was at and hosting with question 4. One of the reasons I'm sitting in this chair tonight is because I'm devastated by the loss of question 4, and it's gonna have devastating impacts. I believe in the Reagan rule. I never speak ill will of another Republican. I support all Republicans. I support some Republicans more than others, but I always support Republicans.
Sure. So as I said, I work on political campaigns. That's my background and experience. So I helped my friend Dave DeCoste, who I helped get elected in 2014. And you really need to know that he's always had close races. So in 2020, he got reelected by about a 400 vote margin. And he was running against a well-funded candidate who was spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to try to beat him. The candidate he beat in 2020 ran against him again in 2022. Dave DeCoste is strongly pro-life. So we knew that the Democrat was really going to try to push the life issue or the abortion issue to try to get elected. And as I said, Dave doubled his margin and won every town. Now, what we did is we were active on the ballot questions. Dave knew that the ballot questions were going to do very well in his district in Plymouth County. So we were out collecting signatures, working on those issues. I also worked for another candidate named Eric Moschino, who ran in Plymouth and Kingston. And of all of the candidates who challenged an incumbent Democrat, Eric was able to hold that Democratic candidate to 52% of the vote, which again, Pyrrhic victories, but that was the best showing of any Republican challenger. And I know, and I just met that great candidate up in Gardner, which is a real tragedy that he did not get as much help from some other people, who got 53-47. We need to make sure that we target people, that we work hard, and like I said, that's what I do. So, other people have different backgrounds, but my background is to activate and energize candidates and try to help them. Thank you.
So I am the party chairman, so I was actively involved and knew all the candidates. And, I'm gonna just take a little umbrage at what Mr. Vining said earlier. I want you to know that the first campaign I was involved in, I was 18 years old, and I know I'm only 50. But at any event, so I've been involved in politics my whole life, grew up a Democrat. My father sat me down at 14 years old and said to me, Jimbo, I'll put up with anything you ever do, but don't you ever vote for a Republican. That's the house I grew up in. I became a huge Ronald Reagan fan, and my wife and I, when we moved out of Arlington, I switched from a Democrat to a Republican, and I went home and I said, Mama, you gotta do me a favor, don't ever tell Dad. Don't ever tell Dad. My father lived to be 91 years old, and I never told him that I was a Republican. So folks, I'm a big believer in the conservative freedom movement of America, and I think what all of these people are talking about is exactly what we have to do. And unfortunately, for 40 years, we've had a Republican leadership that is unafraid to stand up for the conservative values that we believe in. The ballot question was a key component to building this party going forward. And the reason it's so important is because what you just said. When you go to Plymouth County, we win across the board. When you go to Bristol County, we won across the board. When you go to Worcester County, we won 85% of the cities and towns. So it gives us a roadmap to victory. How do we do that? We build our RTCs, we regionalize our efforts, so we have state rep candidates who are working with other communities, but at the same time, we need to get our people to run the school committee, also elected in when I was 22, just so you know. And we have to get people to run for office. That's how we make a difference, by getting people involved. So I urge every single person in this room to recognize Massachusetts is nowhere near as blue as it is. We, at the grassroots, are the ones that are gonna change this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, my answer is going to be very different than everyone else's. I've been living in Singapore for the past 13 years, so I moved there in 2009, and I came back here at the end of 2021. My last 13 months here in the U.S. have been renovating or restoring my grandparents' old home and taking care of my parents. That's actually what brought me back to the U.S. When I came back here, I reached out to several campaigns and never heard back. It was almost like that, making those phone calls to the state party. It was like, well, wait a second, I'd like to get involved, and nobody got back to me. So you know what I did? I did something that maybe you guys will be angry about, but I'm proud of what I did. My local state rep in Medford, who I've been friends with for decades, that's the state rep seat that I ran for back when I was 23 years old. Different rep, same seat, Paul Donato. Paul Donato is a conservative Democrat. Paul Donato actually voted in favor of life, so he's pro-life. So no Republican was in that race, but he was opposed in his primary by a George Soros-backed candidate. So do you know what I did? I worked for Paul Donato. I worked for a Democrat. Because you know why? It was important to me to make sure that a conservative Democrat was reelected to that seat, as opposed to a George Soros candidate. So I apologize if you're offended by that, but there was no Republican in that race, and I thought that was the best way that I could contribute.
Thank you. Thank you. So we can hear some general rules for how to read the Republican Party in Massachusetts. But I would please every one of you list 3 most important issues you see for the issues, what you see for the MAGOP GOP to solve in the next 2 years. 3 issues.
Again? All right, yes. Well, I think
the issues.
the first issue is to end the Democratic supermajority in the legislature. And that actually should be our top priorities, to recruit candidates to run for state rep and state senate. We only have 26 reps now and 3 senators. Is that correct, Jim? I think it's pretty close to that.
It's 25.
25 and 3? Yeah, 25 and 3. We need like 54 reps. We need more than double that. And we need 14 senators. So we have a long way to go. So we need to have, what, short?
Sure.
Yes, okay, all right, all right, very good. So they need to be high quality, enthusiastic, young, diverse, electable in their districts. And they have to be funded and they have to run. So we should run 80%. We should run in 80% of the legislative races, state legislative races in the next 4 years.
What are the issues?
The second one, the second issue would be to increase Republican registration. We absolutely must increase Republican registration. And we need to ask our independent friends who are very conservative. If you vote Republican, we want you to register. We are about 3 to 4 points from becoming extinct, like the Green Party. So we have to register. No speech, okay. All right, and the third one, you're good, Kate. I remembered this on the other side. The third one is we need to be unapologetic about raising funds across the Republican spectrum to support a robust party apparatus so that we can utilize media to expand and magnify our message.
Thank you.
Number 1, most important, build our bench. And our bench means school committee, selectmen, finance committee, board of health, and state rep and state senate unit. Number 2, and it might be 1A, we need to beat the Democrats at vote by mail and early voting. We need to master that. We need to turn the tide against them. We need to have an organized plan to do it. And that's, and then 3, money, money, money.
Thank you.
Kate, I think I understand your question a little bit differently. I think you're asking about policy issues, is that not true?
Yes.
So let me just say, number one, taxes. We have to be the anti-tax party. Massachusetts taxes out of control. Number two, we have to care about inflation, especially energy costs. Electric rates in Massachusetts are like second highest in the country. We have a woke governor now who has declared war on fossil fuels. We are all gonna be buried. And in case you haven't noticed, in January, we live in a cold weather state, not good. Third, immigration. And I'll tell you, here's the lesson I learned. On the millionaire's tax, what did the liberals lose, like 7 times in a row? My attitude is, we never stop fighting to roll that back. They were beaten 7 times over, I don't know, 20 years. We need to organize. I learned last night that there may be a constitutional issue, so taxes, energy costs and inflation, and immigration. And with immigration, we have to be forceful.
First thing we have to do, folks, is recognize what Governor DeSantis told us. They're coming for our kids. We have to make sure we protect our children. Education, education, education.
This is the 3.
No, the first one is to protect our children. We have to make sure that this woke agenda does not become commonplace, which is exactly what the radical left wants to do in Massachusetts. The second thing, we have to fight against a big government bureaucracy. We have to fight to reduce our taxes, to reduce spending on Beacon Hill. And third, we have to make sure that immigration is an important issue. That driver's licenses, even though we lost the issue, we have to continue to fight against the radical agenda of the left. Economically, we have to push to reduce government spending. There's plenty of money on Beacon Hill. They're wasting it. They're building out a big bureaucracy. But first and foremost,
This is the first.
okay, I give you.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. Well, we had some issues that were said, and we also had some policy things, so I just want to, I also want to have that time to just say that. The first thing we need to do is we need to make Republicanism sexy again. That is the #1 issue. We're looked upon as like murderers. We're worse than illegal immigrants in the eyes of most people in this state. We need to so issue #1, rebrand what it means to be a Republican. If we don't do that, we're not going to win any races. Issue #2 starts at that local level, at your school committee. I wish if I could go back in time and be on the school committee, I would do what we need to do now, and that is make sure that we protect our children. So, as said earlier, that is totally important. And no, that is the second one. And then the third is that I only get 3, right?
Yes.
Which is unfortunate, but I have to combine them. It's taxes, it's energy, and it's illegal immigration. If we don't hammer home those points, we're just Democrat light.
Thank you.
Hey, Kate, can I just ask you to move
Next.
So, because we can't see John writing.
So should I sit?
Would that be
Should I
okay?
sit here? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I can sit.
Thank you.
I can do that. So, next question is, who is the one contemporary politician or public personality closest to your views and why? Please, Elizabeth.
Well, I have to think for a
Just
second.
1 minute,
Yeah,
please.
there are a lot that I really respect, but I would.
Just name one.
Yes, yeah. I would actually say I've been very impressed currently with Ron DeSantis. Actually.
Yes? Matt?
My answer was going to be Ron DeSantis.
Ron DeSantis, yes?
I hate to join the agenda. I like Ron DeSantis. I do have to say, I like President Trump too. And let me just say, I served as a political appointee inside the Trump administration in EPA. So, love the policies, Sometimes
So
I,
who do you choose?
who do I choose? Probably DeSantis,
Okay,
51-49.
okay.
So I love Ronald Reagan because he brought me to the Republican
But
Party.
he's died.
Right, I'm gonna finish. I love Ronald Reagan because he brought me to the Republican Party, but I love Donald Trump because he taught us all that we have to learn how to fight and take on that crazy agenda.
Very good answer, Jim.
Mr. Vinning?
Vining, it's vining, by the way.
Vining,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
No,
so sorry.
you can associate vinning with winning if you want, but it's vining. In 1980, and I know he's passed away, I know, I'm sorry, but I have to say it. In 1980 is when I became a Republican at the age of 10, because I witnessed this individual, Ronald Reagan, who knew how to communicate. Second only to Ronald Reagan is Donald Trump, who, just as Jim said, he taught us how to fight. Nobody else could have beat Hillary Clinton that year except for Donald Trump, because he could fight. However, Ron DeSantis has shown us how to fight a little bit more eloquently. So if I had to say the person today, it would be Ron DeSantis. But he's very, very close to Donald Trump.
Thank you. Next question. Should the chairman of the MAGOP GOP have a well-formed ideology? Do you have an ideology? Can you define what the word conservative means to you, and do you count yourself as one? Elizabeth?
Yes. Well, I think being Republican is all about freedom. And I would say that being conservative is about how we live our lives. And we can talk a good game, but I think it really is a matter of bringing up our kids, living in our communities, caring about sacrificing for today, for our future. And for me, that's what conservatism is. It's about thinking about the long term and the big picture, and doing what's right for our communities and our families, and living by accepting that there are truths, and being willing to speak to those truths. And so but I think it comes from the point of, we are free. And we are free because people were conservative and gave their lives and their sacrificing their money for that. And we have this gift of governing ourselves, and we have to be responsible stewards of that gift.
Do you have an ideology?
That's my ideology. I believe in freedom. And I think that's what we are about as a party.
Thank you.
I agree with Elizabeth. My conservative values have always been faith, the flag, and freedom. My conservative values are personal accountability. Leave me alone, I'll live my life. I'll leave you alone, you live your life. But I will hold you accountable when you don't follow the rules. I am very pro-police. You will never find a more pro-military or support the blue candidate than myself. In my years of being a selectman, can back that up. I fought corruption in the crime department. So, faith, the flag, freedom, and accountability.
Thank you.
So, I know Jim's only 50, so I might be the oldest candidate here at the table.
These guys are catching on quick.
I grew up in the 80s. I'm a child of the 80s. Let me just say I love Ronald Reagan. And I love Ronald Reagan so much, my son's name is Reagan.
Oh.
And when I brought him to the Catholic Church to get him baptized, the priest said, you know, you're supposed to name your child after a saint. And I said, I thought I did, Saint Ronald Reagan. I'll tell you what, when you have a son named Reagan, you know people's political ideology immediately. Because when you, oh, what's your son's name? Oh, his name is Reagan. And if they scowl, it's like you just know. And if they smile and they say, are you a Republican warmly, you know. So I'm a conservative. I think I don't want to say you have to be a conservative, but I think we are a conservative party. Our grassroots is a conservative grassroots. If we're going to advance the policy, the problem that we're having and the problem that Jim has had is that we have not had unity between the two wings of the party, the moderate wing and the conservative wing. And let me just cite another great GOP president, the first one, Abraham Lincoln: a house divided against itself cannot stand. We need unity. Too often, it's the moderates that demand unity for us. We elected Bill Weld, we elected Paul Cellucci, we elected Mitt Romney, we elected Charlie Baker. And then when all of a sudden you get a little bit more liberal government than you would have expected, they suddenly take a walk which uses more conservative. Not good.
Thank you.
We've got to get people united, but in a conservative way.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, there's no question about it. I am a conservative, and I believe in the fundamental principles of the Republican Party: freedom, individual liberty, and personal responsibility. And I believe strongly that our rights come from God, not from government.
All right, thank you. I have a website, which I'm stealing from the chairman here, but my website is massgopchair.com. So I was being a bit presumptuous when I registered that. But I have a statement on there
Young kids.
where I fully detail what my ideology is. So that is massgopchair.com. To answer your question though, this evening, I'm a libertarian. So yeah, I do consider myself a conservative, but I'm a libertarian. And what happened to us in 2020 and in 2021, and think about me trapped in Singapore during 2020 and 2021. That government was even locked down the country even more than America was locked down. But nothing made me more of a Republican than in 2020 and in 2021, and fired me up when I was back here in 2022 and back here now today in 2023. We need to make sure that what happened then never happens again. We had our freedoms taken away from us. We can never allow government to do what they did to us again. And so that is why I am enthused to rebuild this party. Because if we just have a single party government, there's no way we're going to have our liberty back.
Thank you. Thank you. Doreen, would you like to take the question?
Yes, my question is, how do you plan to unite the Mass GOP to finally work together and to build a stronger party?
I think you unite people by bringing people together around a common mission with clarity and focus on what people believe that we can agree on. I don't think playing nice is how you unite people. I think it all sounds good, but it doesn't actually get anything done. That's not the kind of leadership that leads to accomplishment. But I do think with our own work on the Republican Town Committee, one of my first meetings, we actually sat down and we said, so what can we agree on? What do we agree we stand for as Republicans? What are Republicans? And we identified really 5 things. And we stuck with those, which are a fair judiciary, fair elections, a compassionate, reasonable safety net, low taxes, personal responsibility. We identified a lot of issues, some of those issues where we could all agree on those. And then there is disagreement, but when you have a common mission that covers 80% of the territory, you have a way to unite people and get things done. And that's what we did.
Winning. We need to win. We need to have a winning strategy. The headlines that we get in the paper today do not build a winning strategy. The headlines of failed candidates do not bring a winning strategy. I'm going to go back to the common theme that I'm going to speak to tonight. We need to build that bench on the local level. Who wants to get Republicans elected in this room? Everybody, right? Everybody wants to get Republicans elected. Let's get 100 Republicans elected on a local level. Then we can build some credibility back. Then we can ask for money. We can ask for people more to run for other offices. Winning makes everything go away. Long before the Patriots were the dominant team in town, they would lose all the time, and the headlines were always horrible. What happened when they started winning? People started to rally around them. Same thing could be made with the Red Sox. It's a bad sports analogy, but winning solves problems. we're not gonna win the governor's race because the race isn't in 4 years, but there's a municipal election in 90 days. Are we ready to win that race? When we start winning those races, morale will come up,
We'll go back
money
to
will
work.
come up.
So, I'm a football guy, you can't tell from my broad shoulders, I know Jim is a basketball guy. And as a football guy, I have to say, John, that winning solves a lot of problems. When teams lose, you get this. You talked about the Red Sox, 25 players, 25 taxis. So what we've got to do is we have to win, but the way you win is, I'm also a big Vince Lombardi fan. So you need to start to do the work and the things that need to be done to get you those victories. You need to organize at the local level. You need to go and get the people who are being energized by the conservative message. Here's something to think about. Donald Trump almost won the city of Fall River in Bristol County. City of about 75,000 people, generally very democratic. Joe Biden got 53% in Fall River. In Dave DeCoste's district, some of those towns are wealthy Boston suburbs, Norwell, Hanover. Donald Trump got crushed, and Biden got like 67%. Now, those towns are typically, they vote Republican, but they didn't like Trump. We're seeing a transformation in American politics that is extending to Massachusetts. If we do all of the things that we need to do to energize the working class, the blue collar, the salt of the earth people, we will be able to put a team on the field that wins. And then when we win, we're gonna look around and say, wow, the Republican Party has never been so strong. And I think, as you said, Elizabeth, we need to be focused on getting veto-proof numbers in the legislature. We need to be winning local races too, because those selectmen become great state rep candidates, and those school board members become great state rep candidates. But we need to get to the numbers in the legislature, so the next time we get a Republican governor, we can sustain vetoes, and we can force that governor to govern conservatively. So just one final point, quickly. Bill Weld's best 2 years as governor, and again, because I'm the oldest guy on the panel, Bill Weld had a veto-proof number. We had 16 state senators, and Bill Weld's best 2 years as governor were the first two, when he could sustain a veto. We've got to get there, and that's how we win.
So, just to follow up on what Elizabeth said about not playing nice, I think is what you said, right? Not playing nice. No one can accuse me of not playing nice, okay? Everyone knows in this room, I am accused of not playing nice. Well, that's exactly what we need right now, because what these people are talking about is building a winning team. But you cannot build a winning team when the people that control the operation are playing dirty. And that's exactly what has gone on in this party. They have played dirty. And you know who's been injured by that? Every single person in this room. Because everyone here wants to see us build the party. Well, I was the guy that snuck into the movie theater when I was 11 and saw the dirty movie. They made me chairman, and what I found was dirt. And they don't like the fact that I'm going after them. I filed a suit against the treasurer of this party that shut down our bank account on February 1st. We've now uncovered additional defendants. We are filing a new lawsuit within the next 10 days that's going to encompass every RTC in the state. And we are urging everyone to sign on as a plaintiff. We have set up a legal defense fund. We're going to hold these bad actors accountable. Not only do we want them to get out of our party, but we want them to pay damages for what they've done to each and every one of you people. I am not going to play nice.
Kate. So the question was how are you going to unify the party, correct? That's the question? All right. Okay, all right, so I just wanted to make sure, because a lot of broader issues were talked about other than that. Remember I said in my opening remarks, I mentioned the fact that I'm likely the most qualified, but also the least likely to win? The reason I'm the least likely to win is because I'm the outsider, right? I've been gone for 13 years. Sure, I was a grassroots activist, I was involved top to bottom, worked in the Welch Salucci administration, did all of those things. But I've been gone for 13 years. I'm the outsider. Who wants to work with the outsider? Well, you know what? The outsider is the person who can bridge the gap between the Jim Lyons group and then the others. We'll just call them the other, right? Because who is that? But I really believe that if I were to come in as chairman of the party, I could sit both of those factions down. I think what Jim is doing is good, right? He's trying to root out that, and it's always existed. When I was involved back in the 90s, it was there. We had that conservative wing of the party, then we had the liberal wing of the party, then we had this group of people who always tried to undermine us for some reason. I never understood why. I don't know why, when we're such a small group, why we have to infight with each other. That just baffles me. But as the outsider coming in, I think that I have the ability to talk to both groups and say, come on, guys, we need to win some elections. And that tough love approach that you guys talk about as the coach, I played sports before, and you know what? The coach that was the friendly guy who made everybody feel good, that team always lost, right? So you need to have, that coach has to obviously care about you, but care about you with a heavy hand. So I think that aspect has to be there too. But I would see about unifying the party by being that neutral individual coming in saying, okay, what do you want to bring to the table? What do you want to bring to the table? How do we mix those two together to start winning?
Thank you. So we will have 2 questions about the election. I take one, and after from the audience, right? So, do you think that our Massachusetts state and federal election have been clean? Yes or no? If your answer is no, as chairman of the Mass GOP, what would you do differently to ensure that our election will be cleaner, especially in the age of mail-in ballot? Elizabeth.
Okay. Well, elections have never been clean. There's always been jury elections. So I think, yeah, so I don't think the question of are they clean is, I think it's not relevant because there's always been fraud and cheating in elections. The question is there enough fraud and cheating to sway the election? And you know, life is not fair. Nobody wants to hear us right when we lose an election. They want to hear us move on. And you gotta say, you know, the Democrats took advantage of every little loophole they could have possibly taken advantage of after COVID to jam stuff through the ballot box. There's no question about it. And you know, shame on us if we ever let that happen again. And what should we do? So I do believe
what would you do as a
yes. Well, I think voter ID is really important. I am not a fan of mail-in ballots. I think the reality is, if we're going to have mail-in ballots, we have to be very careful about how that is implemented. It's always the devil's in the detail of whether or not it's done fairly. I do think that that we can play hard if we win state legislatures across the country to change and protect the ballot laws. I think having a Republican Congress goes along. Transparent and timely elections is part of our platform. I think one of the worst things that's happening in our elections now is that they're not timely enough. You can't wait 2 or 3 weeks after the election to find out who won. I mean, we really need to have timely elections.
One-day election?
Do I favor a one-day election? I do, actually. Yes, I do. I mean, I have a son in the service, so I would like him to be able to vote. So he has to be able to vote by mail.
Yes,
you have to have some options there, but they have to be reasonable.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
I've been a registrar for quite some time. I will tell you there's voter fraud. Too much, you know, Elizabeth said, you know, there's been voter fraud, unfortunately, on our side, there's been voter fraud on the I don't know who the person was who brought this tonight, but look at this and tell me when election day. This is us, right? This is everything that we believe in, right? Find out when election day is on this.
What will you do? What would you do?
There's one day that's election day. There's a couple things, because I don't disagree with anything Elizabeth said, but if we're gonna activate Elizabeth's plan, it's gonna be 4 years from now, because we're gonna overturn voter ID, we're gonna overturn mail-in voting. Are we gonna demand mail-in voting for the municipal elections this year? Are we going to mandate that? Because we can use that to our advantage now. We're gonna overturn it in Massachusetts when and if I become the chairman. We're gonna overturn it mail-in voting. We're gonna tighten up early voting. We're gonna have election day on election day. We're gonna have accountability in the town clerk's offices, to Elizabeth's point, is what are the results? Before I go to bed tonight, I want to know who won our elections. We allowed it, shame on us. It's gonna be harder for us to fix, but it has to be a core value of everybody in this room, that voter integrity on the local, state, and federal level must be a key priority.
Thank you.
Once again, I'm gonna give you some insight from sports. You know, when everyone was using steroids to hit 50 home runs, there was a phrase, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. So when you ask about elections, whether they're, you know, on the up and up, my answer to you is again, and I've been doing this since 1986, not just no, but hell no. And it's you know, these are big things. Running governments and having the authority to do things causes people to really do a lot of things to win. So what would I do? So I worked for Rudy Giuliani. In 1989, Rudy Giuliani came out of the U.S. Attorney's Office, ran for mayor, and lost by about 46,000 votes. New York City is a little bit bigger than Massachusetts, so you guys know, because of Charlie Baker's margin, what about 46? It was about 1.4%. We knew, now, Rudy
Is there
was...
anything?
Yeah, so hold on, let me get to it. So we knew that Rudy, as a first-time candidate, you make a lot of mistakes. We knew that the Democrats, because we weren't watching, were probably running up votes. So we ran 4 years later. For those 4 years, we focused on ballot integrity. So what did we do? We went through the voter rolls and purged dead people. What an amazing concept. We went to houses and buildings where there were hundreds of registered voters and checked to make sure they were really living people. We found that people named Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck were registered voters in the city of New York. We actually figured that the Democrats had an ability to steal about 250,000 votes in the city of New York. So what did we do? We knew we had to win by 250,000 plus one to win. We got off-duty police officers, off-duty correction officers, because they could carry guns. We trained them in poll watching, in ballot security. We trained up lawyers, and we specifically targeted areas in New York City, like Harlem, like Bed-Stuy, like East New York, that had never seen a Republican ever. And we brought them there, and we knew that you have to prevent a voter from casting the ballot, because once they vote, you can't get it back. So anytime someone came, they lodged a protest. So we protected the integrity, and in 1993, Rudy won by 54,000 votes, and the rest is history. Sorry for the lengthy answer, but thank you.
So as chairman, clearly I agree with everybody that our election issue is a real one. And as chairman, I tried to get on the ballot the voter ID petition. We came up short. We're gonna try it again under my chairmanship. We have to push the agenda, get voter ID on the ballot, and become law in Massachusetts. Second thing I did was we formed an election integrity committee, and I think Kathy's here tonight, Kathy Lynch, and she's been tireless in her efforts to try to train people. We put together a manual to try to train people and get people ingratiated into the election integrity issue. And when the Democrats overwhelmingly passed the mail-in ballot, I appealed it to the Supreme Court. I lost. There were 2 issues out there on the federal level that were gonna go up, hopefully get it before the US Supreme Court. We have to consistently fight these people on these issues. We also have to understand, to make another sports analogy, is when they put the 3-point line in basketball, teams have to figure out they're gonna adjust. So it's the law right now. Mail-in voting is the law. We have to figure out how to play within the context. That doesn't mean we stop our election integrity issue, doesn't mean we don't try to vote, put voter ID, doesn't mean we don't try to continue to fight in the court. But right now, as Republicans, we have to build a better network of how to make mail-in ballots something that we can work. In California, Michelle Steele is a congresswoman out there who just won in a very tight district by 10%, and the reason she won was because the Republicans in California, in that district, did a better job than the Democrats do. Sean Steele and Michelle Steele are friends of mine. They promised to help us in Massachusetts.
Thank you.
I can't disagree with everything that I just heard, so I'm gonna say ditto to all of that, okay? I agree. One of the things that we definitely need to do is if you can't beat them, you join them. And that doesn't, I'm not saying that we cheat, sure there was fraud, but I'm saying they manipulate the system, we need to take that same system that they've manipulated and we need to flip that around to our advantage. So that's, I mean, I'll be honest with you, that's what we've got to do until we can tighten everything down.
How do you?
Well, I'll get to that. What we need to do, though, the same things were just that Chris was mentioning, what was done in New York, right? We need to have poll watchers. We need to be able to clean off those rolls. That's very important. Now, I'm going to take this and I'm going to answer this with the approach of what I've been doing the past 13 years in Singapore. For my I'm a marketing technology guy. So my clients have been Apple, Cisco, Microsoft, LG, Samsung, SAP, blah, 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 right? One of the things that I did for them is I developed what's called a channel enablement playbook. I don't want to get too technical about it, but it's basically a web-based application that enabled the channel sales teams for all of these corporations to be able to identify who their customer was. It provided a means by which they could reach out to that customer, and there were automated tools within this web-based app for them to be able to engage them or enable a sales transaction. As party chairman, I would develop a similar system for the Massachusetts Republican Party so that every one of our candidates would be able to identify who that particular voter is, who that particular donor is, supporter is, and activate them. And applying this to mail-in balloting, I would develop a feature in that so that we could do the same things that the Democrats do. We could pad the vote before the actual day of the election. We would get every single registered Republican that we can't do, rather than drive them to the polls on election day, we manipulate the mail-in balloting system so that those votes are already cast before election day, so that then our time and resources are utilized monitoring what's happening on election day, and then taking everybody who hadn't yet voted by mail-in balloting and making sure that they got to the ballot. That is how we will be able to win elections until we're able to lock it down and make it secure.
It's very interesting. It would be nice, a debate about how to, this election issue, but unfortunately we don't have. We have question about election.
Well, sort of. Gentlemen and lady. My name's Chuck Holloman. So 2022, Mass GOP did really bad. Okay, so what that says to me is that obviously you gotta do something different. Probably you gotta do a lot of things different if you're hoping to have a prayer of success, because doing the same thing and expecting to get a different result, that's crazy. So I guess I'd like to ask all of you, what specifically would you propose to do differently from what's been done before, looking forward to the next set of elections?
I think candidate choice here is really critical.
I'm sorry?
I think candidate choice is really critical. I I think we need, this is where you have to work with the RTCs and the RCCs and identify candidates who are electable in their districts. And that's gonna look different across the state. There's some places where you're gonna have a very conservative candidate. There are other places where the most electable, most conservative candidate is going to look different. And I would say Brookline is a great example of that. We got some very, very conservative people elected to town meeting and to, but we also elected some people who were, I would say, much more in the moderate, even more liberal end of the Republican spectrum. And I think we have to be prepared to do that. So I would say we need a younger, more diverse, more enthusiastic, more vibrant, high-quality candidates to run.
What does this mean, diverse?
Diverse. I think faces, people who look like the people that they are elected, they are representing. And that will differ depending on where you are and what your community looks like. So I think, and we are the party of diversity. We are the most diverse party, actually, if you think about it. When I stand at our Brookline booth on Brookline Day, the line of people coming to see us, you would not believe it. It is immigrant families who just arrived, Asians, Hispanics, Vietnamese. I mean, it is unbelievable. And they want to talk to us because they have family values like ours. And that is the group of people we need to engage, unapologetically engage, and recognize that they are the people of the future. The legal immigrants and the achievers of America are the Republicans of the future, and we want them. And I think it is so clear that that's who we need to attract. And that is not about not solving the immigration problem. We need to solve the immigration problem because we need secure borders, clearly. But let's be honest about how many of us are first or second generation people here. And we came here for a better life. All of those, they come here with they know what American values stand for. They are our natural comrades, colleagues, and allies. Thank you.
Thank you.
You were so elegant, but can you rephrase the question again, just so get back on topic? What was the exact question?
Well, in terms of what would you specifically do different going forward?
It's the whole reason I'm here tonight, so I appreciate the question, and that's why I wanted to re-ask.
Okay.
And Ron kind of indicated on it, and Jim knows it. And I don't even have to look at him, I know he knows it. The state committee, for too long, and I'm not placing blame and I'm not pointing fingers, hasn't done their job. State committee has one job: to recruit, train, and get candidates elected. It's easy, and I've got some criticisms of Jim. Jim and I have talked about him in the past, and it's always easy to Monday morning quarterback. But Jim can't do it all. The next party chair can't do it all. The chairs in the past couldn't do it all. But is the state committee doing their job? And I'm not saying individually, I'm talking as a whole. I'm here tonight, once again, it's been my theme all night. Municipal elections start in 60 days. Does your state committee rep, either one of them, have a candidate for school committee? Does your state committee rep have a candidate for board of selectmen or city council? Do you have a moderator who in most towns handles the finance committee? So, every meeting that I would ever chair is, let's go, and it's gonna take a while, because we're gonna do it 50 times. Who do you got? How can we help? What do we need to do to get their campaign going? What can I do to provide support to them? How can I raise them money? What are we doing for fundraising for them? What are we doing for training for them? The only way we're going to build this party, we all share the same ideology, but we're not willing to face the same reality. We're never going to be a viable party in this state until we build our bench, okay? Who knew who Chris Doty was last year? And I'm not saying, he came. Jeff Deal, great candidate, and he's been a good guy for the party. We're always going to have a governor candidate. We're always going to have a governor candidate. We're hopefully always going to have an attorney general candidate. Not saying that those things take care of themselves, but they kind of take care of themselves. Somebody will come along and step up and do the right thing by the party. But where we fail is we continue to lose rep seats, Senate seats. We can't sustain a governor veto, and we're never going to fix that until the state committee says, I've got 2 guys for the school committee, I've got two ladies for the board of selectmen, I'm gonna put somebody in as a town moderator, and we start winning again. The small we need to get Republicans elected. The state committee needs to do their job. And that would be my #1 priority.
Thank you.
So I have an interesting thought about this, and it's, it in part answers, I think, your question, which is election cycles have a natural ebb and flow. So as a guy who's been doing this for more than 30 years, I know, and Jim knows, because in 2010 and 2014, we had great election cycles when we had a Democratic president in Barack Obama and a Democratic governor in Deval Patrick. So to answer your question, when you have an incumbent governor, you're on the hook for all the animosity, and nobody is ever fully satisfied. Everything that goes wrong in Massachusetts from January 1st forward is Maura Healey's fault and the Democratic parties. They own it. So that natural, the Tea Party movement in 2010.
And what would you do different?
No, so we need to take advantage of what I think, again, in the midst of all the unhappy talk of 2022 was less than good, and we feel like we're not doing well as Republicans, I'm going to be optimistic and positive and say we're going to have a great election cycle in 2022. We can have one. And what I would do different is, for me personally, is I would be very active and very energized with the city and town committees, with party activists, with like-minded groups, anybody who thinks that the Democrats are not good is a friend of mine. So it becomes really an issue of focus. You gotta go out and recruit candidates, you gotta raise money, you gotta organize, and oddly enough, when you said what would you do different, some of those things, like I said, as Massachusetts Republicans, we haven't gotten, very good at it. There are, individual cases where town committees and areas are working. I'm from Plymouth County. Plymouth County is, I gotta say, I'm proud of Plymouth County. It does pretty well. And Worcester County, as Jim said, does pretty well. So what we have to do is we have to develop those grassroots strategies. We have to put in place activating people, energizing people, making people feel included. I have to say, Jim was I'll end with this. Jim has been very kind to me. And Jim invited me very graciously to his regional meetings. Now, I'm running against Jim for state chairman, but he asked me to go to the meetings, and I've gone to every one of them, and my point is, I will go to everything someone invites me to, and I will talk to everybody in Massachusetts who wants the Republicans to win. Thank you.
So I think what we're seeing tonight are people that are sitting at this table that really want to make a difference in Massachusetts. And as the chairman of the party, I understand what the problem is. And when you have your governor raising money for a PAC that spends $27,000 to defeat an African-American Republican running for his second term, and we lose by 6 points, it's difficult to win. It's difficult to win. In 1990, as he points out, we had 53 Republicans in the legislature under Bill Weld. 53. Those Republicans were elected on the backs of conservatives. By 1993, Bill Weld decided he was now going to play with Billy Belgian. Okay? So what you see historically in Massachusetts is a Republican Party with the grassroots. We have to step up and help moderate to liberal Republicans. What happened? From 1990 to 2010, we saw that number of 53 drop to 11. The Tea Party took over. Wasn't the Republican Party. It was grassroots people like you who got involved and helped elect people like me in 2010. That number went up to 35 in the House in 2014. Guess where we are now? We're at 25. People, we have to be unafraid to say we're Republicans. Charlie Baker hated President Donald Trump. What kind of message does that send to the people of Massachusetts? The leader of our party says, hey, this guy's no good. You know how many grassroots people love President Trump in this state? There are 555,000 people who are independents who support President Trump. That's number one. Number two, when you have the leaders, Ron Kaufman and his crony, Doug Bennett, calling me a pedophile, a racist, and a bigot, and Charlie Baker's guy, Brian Wynn, spending money on legal bills to destroy the chairman of the party. You talk about articles in the newspaper. You know who they're writing about? They're writing about me. They're writing about me because I am a strong, America-loving conservative who won't put up with their nonsense. And folks, if we allow these people to do that, whatever these people want to do is never going to happen.
That's right.
The reason is it was all about money, folks.
Yeah.
It was all. Sometimes I get a little upset about it.
What would you do different?
Thank you. That energy from Jim, it makes me have to stand up right now. Okay, so to answer your question, what would be done differently? I started to hint about it when I talked about developing that tool, right? I talked about that channel engagement tool. As a management consultant, one of the things that I do for my clients, the very first thing I come in is I ask them, what is your brand story? So when you ask me what would we do differently, I would want to ask Republicans in Massachusetts, right? We could poll this, we could do that, whatever the means is. What is our brand story? Once we establish what our brand story is, as chairman of the party, I would be that chief storyteller, right? As chairman of the party, you're the CEO, technically, of the Republican Party. I would run the state party like I would run a corporation. So as chair of that party, one of the things I would do is I would activate my board of directors. And who is that? That's the state committee. I would make the state committee responsible for their senatorial district. Well, easier said than done, right? But I would ask them to be responsible for it anyway. You've heard of multi-level marketing, right? It's like Avon, right? Everybody's familiar with Avon or Tupperware. The state party needs to work the same way. So those state committee members, you activate them and you say, hey, tell me what is going on in your district. Tell me who is that local candidate. And so here I am, CEO of the party. Next level is the state committee. But on the next level to that is the Republican Town Committee. The level below that is the activists. So the people who are here. I would want to activate from that top level our brand story, filter that down to the grassroots activists to say, who are those local candidates? And what I would do differently is I would focus on the municipal elections first. We are never going to grow this party until we activate at that grassroots level and we develop that farm team. Because from the selectmen, from the school committee, from the city council, from the mayor, becomes our state rep and our state senator. But it all begins first with that chief, that CEO, who activates the board, who's the state committee members, who then activates the Republican and town committee chairs, who activates those grassroots activists. So that's what I would do differently. But what would be different about this is I would develop that tool that I told you about. It's easy, it's quite easy. I've done it for countless corporations. I can do it for the Republican State Party here in Massachusetts. That engagement tool will enable us to activate from the top bottom to the bottom to the bottom to top, identifying voters, identifying donors, identifying supporters, and the media channels to disseminate that message. That's what I'll do differently, and we'll start winning.
Thank you.
Just one quick, to cement what they're saying. In Carlisle,
Please introduce yourself.
oh, I'm Bob Clark from Carlisle. I think Rod ran into him. I don't know where they found this candidate. University of Virginia Law School, worked for the feds for a number of years, some high profile cases. Did some other things, came here, went door to door, spent a yazoo amount of money. I mean,
Who are you talking about?
I'm trying to think of his name.
The-
His name-
Simon Carlisle.
Simon Cataldo.
Let me just finish.
here we go.
Let me just quickly finish. So, he's running for state, well, not federal, state. They're priming him for one of the Senate jobs, guaranteed. I'm a nobody, but I got a good brain. That's what's happening. Where they got him, and you're right, you're all right. You gotta start way down.
Hey, I have to respond to this gentleman for right now. Simon Cataldo raised $230,000 to run for state representative. Simon Cataldo is the attorney from the Ashcroft Sullivan law firm that Brian Wynn hired to create the statement that they leaked to the Boston Globe to call me a racist and a bigot, and I have the emails and documents to show it. That's number one. Number two, Charlie Baker's IPAC donated money on behalf of Simon Cataldo. The guy raised $230,000. His PAC gave him $7,000. He didn't need $7,000. You know what I call that $7,000? I call it a bribe. That's how bad it is in this state.
Anyone wants to comment this?
I just had a question for Vining.
This issue,
Well, it was what he was just talking about. Do you mind if I ask a question?
oh,
So, Mr. Vining,
Yes.
you have this great plan with the channels and the marketing and the consulting, all that. I want to ask you, if you, say, lose your race for chairman, would you be willing to volunteer your time to help the party even if you're not chairman? Like, do you have to be chairman to implement this, or can you help the party on your own?
Yeah,
As
no,
an
I
activist, with that whole system you're
I don't
talking
need
about?
to be chairman in order to
Okay.
make this happen, but I would need the state party to back me to make that happen. Because
I like this young fellow.
I guess it's a commitment from the.
is there anyone for this issue?
No.
Yep.
Brian?
Brian Latine, Chelmsford. Rodney Cleves ran against Simon.
Yeah.
Okay. Simon showed up the day before the election in my town of Chelmsford. He lives in Concord. He claims he never left Concord. He lived in Harlem, and he went to Arizona and got Joe Arpaio, put in jail.
Yeah, no,
Fine.
I agree.
Rodney called Joe Arpaio. This is the kind of candidate we had on the Republican side. This guy raised his own money, about $3,000. Simon got $300,000.
I agree. I'm just.
The state audits this guy.
Yeah, in the middle of it right now, Brian.
Yeah. So when Rod comes and asks for money from our Mass GOP, a lot of that money was going to Simon, not through this man. It was going through the back door. Those lawsuits are critically important that those go through. And I would love to have the five of these people for 1 year. You said you want to stay for 1 year?
Good man.
For 1 year to counter this kind of crap that we put up with.
That's why I'm doing this, folks.
If you'd agree for 1 year
I've already told
and
everybody,
then
I'm
leave,
done.
and these four folks agree to get on the committee with you as almost equals, would you consider that? Would they consider helping you spend a year transitioning to one of them so we can get this stuff cleaned up and that lawsuit done, so it doesn't get on them? And then you leave.
So just if you guys don't mind, I'll
Please.
speak to it, okay. So, one of the woman that's running, who isn't here tonight, Amy Carnevale, who's a member of the state committee, wants to have all the lawsuits go away, okay? And in my opinion, what that is sweeping it all under the rug, all right? She knows exactly who the people are. She knows exactly what they did. It's kind of like robbing a bank, give the money back and let them go. Folks, the amount of effort and time that you people have put in to help your candidates was totally undermined by these people. And everyone here is going to be getting an email asking you to become a plaintiff in our lawsuit. And I would urge every member here to join that lawsuit so we can go forward, hold these people accountable, recover damages that will be going back to our local RTCs. That's what we're trying to do. We need everybody's help to do it. I will personally be reaching out to everyone in this room in the next several days.
Anybody else comment this issue? Very short, please. Brief.
You want to ask my question?
Do you want to comment to this issue or?
No, I just have another question.
Okay, so, okay. Please.
Yeah, Mike Gagers from Acton RTC. I think if you look around the room, you'll see one of the problems of the Republican Party.
They're old white guys like me, is that what you're saying?
Nothing wrong with old white guys.
Really, I agree.
Well, keep them to yourself.
It's old white guys.
That's what I just said.
Yeah. And the thing is, like in high school, there are probably high school students that have never met a Republican. And I think what the difference between us and the Democratic Party, they start in kindergarten, indoctrinating these kids. We don't get them till, they're out of the army and stuff like that, and then they realize what a great country it is. But it's too late. We gotta recruit these kids. If this was a Democratic meeting, probably half the audience would have been high school students here, activists. We don't have the young activists anymore, and that's what we need. It's just the image that we have is old white people. And we gotta do something, we gotta get the youth. I think they've already captured, starting in kindergarten, they captured these kids and they indoctrinated them, and they have no idea what we're all about.
My next question is.
Can I comment on that? Can I comment
Would
on
you
that?
mind if I put
You're the boss.
put first the question is which connected for his comment. So, in Concord and Carlisle, more than 80% of the teachers, professional staff, and members of the school committees are females. Is this equity? More importantly, is this healthy for students who have XY chromosomes? Yes or no? If you think it's not healthy, would you organize a special outreach program only for adolescent and teenage boys who have XY chromosomes to be involved in politics and have them grow up as a real man? And if you say you would organize that, what and how?
Can you repeat the first part of the question?
In Concord and Carlisle, more than 80% of the teachers, professional staff and members of the school committee are female. Is this equity? More importantly, is this healthy? Is this healthy for students who have XY chromosomes? It's healthy. Only
Transgender boys, the boys.
XY chromosomes.
Okay, all right, got it.
Yes or no?
Are female teachers
Is it
okay for
healthy?
boys?
Is it healthy that 80% teachers, any professional in the school committee are female?
Well,
Is
most,
it healthy?
okay, well, since I believe that mothers are healthy, I would have to say female teachers are healthy. I mean, I think I'm a little confused by the question, but I would say that, I'm a child psychiatrist. I have worked with gender dysphoric kids for over 30 years. I've worked with kids who at 2 are confused about whether or not they're a male or female. We are dealing with a very different situation today with a social contagion problem in late onset, what they call late onset gender dysphoria. It is a very complicated issue. and there are lots of feelings about it. But what I would say is that it is really important. This is very serious business. This is not stuff to be messed around with. I'm a mental health professional with a lot of training, and I think this is a hard place to work, and I think our teachers are not prepared nor trained to work with identifying or teaching gender dysphoria, or it's just the wrong place. So that said, frankly, we live in a world where there are two sexes, male and female, and people have to get along, male and female, and we have to be able to work together, male and female. So whether we do that, I don't know what the equity question is, because we're all working together anyway. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, if people are not happy with their
The
schools,
question was, is it healthy for?
how is it not healthy for sexes to work together? I don't understand that
Well,
question.
is it healthy for 80% female
Well,
in the school?
I've lived a real life
Yeah.
experience.
I would like to finish.
yeah, I'm really trying to get.
I would like to finish the question. If you think it's not healthy, would you organize a special outreach program only for adolescent and teenage boys who have XY chromosomes to be involved in politics and help them grow up a man?
Okay, so,
And if you say you would organize
well,
an outreach
all right.
program.
I'm the mother of a son who was an Eagle Scout. I worked in Boy Scouts. I think that boys need to grow up and be strong boys. Now, I'm not talking about kids who are struggling with an emotional issue. I'm not talking about that. But the idea of our boys, if you were to ask me clinically, our boys are in trouble. Our men are in trouble. Our young men are in trouble. When you look at the labor economic
The
data.
question is about this.
Yes, but it's impossible to answer that question without taking a bigger perspective. The perspective here is that our young men, aged 18 to 45, are falling out of the workforce and becoming addicted to screens, to drugs and alcohol, and we need to support our young boys who are growing up into those men to be successful.
Do you have
So,
a suggestion what to do?
yes, I
As
actually
a
do.
chairman,
I believe if people aren't happy with their schools, we should support school choice. That's what I think. Or we should make other choices about schools. But I think from a clinical perspective, it's really important to help all kids, families, parents bring up their kids in ways that they thrive and grow. And I think that is a very clinical, that's a clinical question.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Is that,
I'm gonna be a
Excuse me,
little.
could I just interrupt 1 second,
This is
please?
not-
I know you have a chair.
Yeah.
It's about 15 minutes until adjournment time, and I was under the impression that the audience would have some Q&A time. I know at least I have at least one question, and this is a very complicated question to ask. I think we're gonna run out the clock if this is put to all these people. I respectfully ask you to withdraw the
For one
question, and see
question,
if
there is
everybody here can have a
16
chance to
minutes
question.
for one question. This question began, it's 3.
But I think there are people here who have questions in the audience, and we're not going to have the time if this is run out. Could you respectfully withdraw the question and allow some people in the audience to
Okay,
ask?
so
their
are the
questions?
candidates, if they want to say anything?
I do want to say something.
Can I just do real quick, since I was the next in line?
Yes,
I'll be
and
real
I
quick.
would like
I've lived the real reality. I've been the one male on a 5-member board of school committee. So is it equitable? Yeah, it is equitable, because we're all there trying to make a better life for our kids. To this gentleman's point over here, that we're typically old men, I'm glad I'm not a kid today. Because the pressures that are put on children today is unconscionable. And it's for the party that we're, the one-party rule in Massachusetts has ruined being a kid in this. Because you know what?
Sure has.
If you want to play with your mom's purse and you want to play with your mom's makeup when you're 4 or 5 years old, so what? Absolutely. So what? Let them play with it. Let them learn that that's what they don't want to do, or more importantly, if that's what they want to do, encourage it. But the pressures we put on teachers, the pressures that we put on school administration, the pressure that we put on children, we should all be ashamed of ourselves for allowing, and that's why I'm going back to the theme. We can't win the governor race tomorrow. We can win school committee races tomorrow. That's why we need candidates.
So I think, I'd like to say something quickly. I think what your question gets to, and I'm a little bit, as a person who was a conservative Republican, we're usually on kind of the losing end of these equity questions, right? So I think it's, maybe with all due respect, not really the best way just to say there are 80% of female teachers is that good. Let me just say, if those female teachers were like Margaret Thatcher, I'd say that's
But they are not.
But they're not, and that's the issue, and that's what I wanted to talk about. The problem, and I know Jim is gonna say hell yeah to this, it's the teachers' unions. That is the problem, and that is so, what you have to do is you have to go right at them on parents' rights issues. So I have a friend of mine who does all kinds of messaging strategies. And he said to me that Democrats have a strategy they use in every instance. It's called victim, bully, and hero. The victim, right, if you want to talk about the abortion issue, it's the woman, right? It's her choice, her body, her choice. That's the victim. The bully, of course, are traditional value conservatives who believe in the value of life, but they make us the bully. Then the Democrats, of course, oh, we're the heroes, we're the champions of women. They do it in education too. Everything they do is victim, bully, hero. What we have to do, so as chairman, this is what I would do. I would turn that template on them, and I would play the victim, bully, hero game, but I would do it from the parents' perspective, because the parents are the stakeholders in their child's education. Hillary Clinton said it takes a village, and everything has gone downhill since then. No, it takes good parents to raise a child, and that's what we have to champion those parents, and when we champion those parents, we'll change the schools. Thank you.
So folks, the one thing about your question that I want you to understand I don't agree with, Sister Marie Thomas, Sister Jeremiah, Sister Niceta, Sister Anne Marie, I was taught by all nuns, okay? So, in my opinion, it's what these folks talked about. It's the school boards. We have to hold, and the unions, we have to hold our teachers accountable. We have to make sure that they are taught the right things in school. I don't need any more of this nonsense, this yoke agenda, where we're teaching kids drag queen shows. What, are you kidding me? I mean, the world is upside down, and they want us to sit in the corner and be quiet. We have to stand up and say, we've had enough. We've had enough. We are gonna have parents who have a right in their kids' education. And when we do that, it doesn't matter who teaches them. There's gonna be an agenda and a curriculum that we demand, not what the teachers union demands.
I'm going to just answer for 10 seconds and then defer my time so that we take questions from the floor.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've been an adjunct professor, I was an adjunct professor from 1994 up until 2021. I was fired from UMass Boston because my tweets, the students were threatened by my tweets. Isn't that a shame, right? What has gone on in our academic system? I joined the school committee in 2003 in Medford because I cared about education, because I saw these snowflake students that we had that were being manicured, groomed, right? Let's use the word. They've been groomed by their teachers to behave and think a certain way. So, as to John's point, we could start winning elections in 60, 90 days at the local level, and that's what we need to do. I'm going to just end it at that so that we can have a question from the floor.
So I'd like to ask you a question.
Please.
My name is Brian Giapp, I'm an attorney from Drake. This question is for you, Jim. you support Rona McDaniel for re-election of the RNC?
I support Tommy Dillon.
And you intend to vote for her?
Not only do I intend to vote for her, she called me yesterday, she's gonna put a public statement out saying that I endorsed her.
Good.
I'm Russell Cleary from Pepperell. I want to go back to what the one question asked from the audience, the original question, probably the most important question of the night. What would you do differently? Chairman Lyons, you characterized the problem with Charlie Baker and company, Ron Kaufman. You characterized the problem. You did not say what you would do differently. Everyone else on the panel did. You did not. Would you please tell us what you would do differently?
Well, I think I did. I think I said what I am doing differently right now is I have filed lawsuits against these people because these people have done nothing but undermine every single person in this room. I happen to believe that the system and the plan that we have in place is a good one. And the plan that we have is in place is to identify districts that we can win in, reach out to the local communities, and as everybody on this board said, get candidates in place that run for school committee, board of selectmen, and then build a network of volunteers so then we begin to use those same people to help support our state rep and state senate candidates.
I thought that was what you've been doing anyway.
Excuse me?
I thought that was what you had been pursuing anyway.
No, but that's exactly what I did last time. It's exactly what we did last time. That's the plan that we implemented. We had 85 candidates run across the state. We have 47 candidates that ran for state representative that got over 42% of the vote. And I just explained to you some of the problems that we had. So I believe we have a good plan in place. I believe we have a good system in place. I believe the grassroots are energized to go out and carry this ball. What we have to make sure is that we're not being blown up within our own party.
Fighting with two hands, not one behind the back and one leg.
Exactly.
Any comment for this issue?
Can the panel comment?
Yes, please.
Jim, you and I are friends, and we respect each other, and we don't always agree on everything. But I just want to verbalize this because if I was you, I would be as angry as you. And you know that I don't put up with shit either. And that's one of the things I like about you. And I understand that you're angry, and I respect it. And if people did call you names, which I know that you're not a racist, I know you're not a bigot, I know you're not a pedophile, shame on them if they did do that to you. But Charlie Baker's gone. And I understand you're mad, but can we move forward if you're gonna carry that baggage? And I just have to ask the question.
Absolutely,
so everybody in the room can understand.
Absolutely. It's a great question, and thanks for asking it. All right, and thanks for asking. It gives me an opportunity to answer. So listen, we have a party that's broken. We have people that have been damaged. It's my job as the chairman of the party to protect your interest. To protect your interest. Those people took our money and wasted it. We, you, and everyone in this room is entitled to damages. And I am gonna fight like hell to get you what you deserve. That's what I'm gonna do. Let's go look the other way? Is that what you're suggesting? Is anybody on this panel saying, let's look the other way? It's time that we recognize that that's been done for 40 years.
That's right.
Yeah.
Look the other way. We're gonna take these people on, we're gonna hold them accountable, and we're gonna get damages for our grassroots, and we're gonna do it this year. And Mr. Fetherson, can I count on you to join our lawsuit?
In spirit, yes, I have.
No, in spirit. Listen. How many people will help me with that lawsuit against these people? That's what we need. We can no longer say, hey, thanks for sticking it up our ass, now go smile and make friends with each other. That has to stop.
Do you have a question?
I have a question, and it's real simple. It'll take
Please, your name.
45 seconds for all of them. That you're going to need to
Please,
say.
your name, please.
Phil Marcagiani, acting Boxborough Republican Town Committee. Okay? For the longest time, I'm sick and tired of politicians not answering yes or no questions. So it's yes, it's no, or I choose not to answer. And it's going to go really quick. not in Massachusetts, but on the national level, was the 2020 election stolen from Donald Trump?
Yeah.
Yes, no, or I choose not to answer. Bing, bing, bing.
All right.
I want to know.
Phil.
Can I answer? I don't know.
Oh,
That's an
my
answer.
God.
I don't
Please,
know.
one,
Okay.
please.
I'm gonna skip Elizabeth answer, I don't know.
You don't know.
You don't know, huh?
I can't give you a
How
yes
about
or no
you, sir?
answer.
Do you know?
But hold on, let me give you a quick
I'm gonna,
answer.
I'm gonna talk to you.
I said yes, no, or no.
Yes or no?
Don't know, don't know.
Absolutely.
What about the gentleman on the end?
What's that? Thank you. All I want to know. All I want to know.
I wanna speak.
By the way,
Yes, you have that-
that's the tweet that got me fired for 2 minutes. That's the tweet that got me fired.
Two candidates I really like. That gentleman there I know, his name is James Lyon, is that?
James J. Lyon.
The other gentleman I'm interested in.
Ron
The guy
Vine.
from outside of Singapore, I spent time in Singapore also.
But
The
you have a
election
question?
of my name is Nino Sinilia. I live in the great town of Andover, same town as Jim. And I've been disgusted with the party called Republican in the state of Massachusetts. Because not many of you backed the only man who fought for us in 2020 and in 2016. And now you're talking about Ron DeSantis.
Thank you.
That star from Florida.
Thank you.
You don't get it. You gotta fight and you gotta talk about election integrity. And you gotta make it happen here. There are gentlemen in the state who are fighting for that right now. There are gentlemen in the state who are fighting for that right now. And you gotta get into the court system with real lawyers, not the lawyers you hired, James, for your case,
Sorry.
your
no
case before the
speeches.
SJC.
I think this young lady is
Good
trying
work.
to.
Point of order.
Enough said, I'll leave.
No speeches.
No speeches. She talked for an hour.
No, it's okay.
God
She's in
bless her.
charge of the meeting.
She talked for an hour.
She's
I
in charge
talked
of
for
the
5
meeting. It's her
minutes.
meeting, it's not your meeting.
It's her meeting.
It is.
I thought it was our meeting.
No, this is
Well, it's not our
She's the
meeting.
Republican.
It's her meeting. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Lonnie?
I found 2 candidates. Thank you.
Because I'm not sure of all the facts and what people
The
know and
only
don't
thing
know.
that matters is
her
election
meeting.
integrity.
Enough,
I'll
that's it.
leave.
Enough.
I'll leave.
I was just wondering if we get it,
Stop.
Ma'am.
Amongst
I was
ourselves.
just wondering if we could just get it out.
We should not be fighting amongst ourselves.
Oh, we're fighting, aren't we? Get the fight on the floor. There's only 2 things that matter, power and money. Once you know that, you learn all about everything
Somebody
else.
has a question.
Power and money.
Next question.
Approximately half the state committee initiated a boycott, and these elected officials have not shown up to meetings for the past year in order to shut down the party and take other actions, which Jim has kind of mentioned. I've gotten hold of some of the court documents, Boston Broadside, put a little bit online, and I got a lot to unleash. But I'm just wondering, I just wanted to, can we get, or are you going to release, or should I simply release the names of those who have done this boycott, have not shown up, because I'm thinking, there's a lot of people telling me they should never get reelected again. They've abdicated their responsibility for a year. Absolutely. And that's the group, which is almost 35, that is going to vote against you.
Correct.
So, are there any details that I'm missing there that people might want to know?
No, I think you just want to make sure that there are some people that did miss meetings with legitimate reasons, but there
I
are,
understand.
there is a group that I know who they are. So I'm happy to go one by one with you, not right now.
I've got my list, but
Yeah,
I was
and
a
I'll
little
make sure
reluctant in
that-
putting out without getting secondary
We would all
verification.
love to see that list.
Well, then why don't you put it
Must
on?
publish it.
Okay, so can we move on to another subject?
Very quick, because it's in the 8. Does anybody else have a question?
Can the audience ask a question, Kate?
Oh, there is more? Okay. Yes, sure, please.
My name is Tom Beals, I'm from Acton. I would like to ask the candidates other than Jim if they are elected chair, will they support the ongoing lawsuits?
Yes or no?
I would have to look at each one and decide if there was merit to pursue it, and if it was logical to pay for the cost of the lawsuit versus the potential gain. So I would look at each one. I would not out of hand say I would not pursue any of them. I think some of them may be very worthwhile pursuing, but I would want to make my own assessment of each lawsuit.
Just so everyone knows, we've set up a legal defense fund so it won't impact the Mass GOP in any way. Okay, so I just want everyone to be aware that there are donors out there that are so committed to this, and it will cost the Mass GOP nothing. However, any damages that are collected will be shared among the RTCs.
It was a yes or no question, right?
Yeah, I just wanted him to know that.
Yes, I
Do you
think that-
support or not, right? So please,
I would have to look at each one.
you don't know.
I would have to.
Don't know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna answer the question as a fiscal conservative, the devil's in the details. I have sponsored many lawsuits in my municipal career as well too.
So you don't know.
Don't know.
I've played along all night long. I'm one of the few that's followed the format, so I asked for a little levity here. As a fiscal conservative and a steward of your party, I would, the devil's in the details. I've asked attorneys to draft lawsuits for me, and then I've read them and go, no, change this, change that. So the devil's in the details. In spirit, as I said to Mr. Lyons before, I understand the frustration. It would be irresponsible of your leader not to know what he was agreeing to before he agreed to it, is the way I see it.
Yes.
Well, yes, but I would need to review each one.
Okay, so anyone wants to ask any question? So I can, you have?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, do you plan to deviate from the conservative Republican ideals and values? And if so, why and how?
Conservative ideals and values of the existing platform, or what do you mean?
Of the existing conservative Republican platform, you know, the ideals, freedoms, this.
So the platform is designed by the state committee, right? The state committee platform committee. And I would, as the chair, you would absolutely not deviate from that platform as it was developed.
I live my life every single day by the conservative values. I'm probably the only person here who's been a Republican since the day he was born. I'm proud that I'm a Republican. Everybody that who's worked with me in government knows that I'm a Republican, and I'm proud of it, and they respect it. Faith, the flag, personal accountability, small government, pro-life, pro-police will never change.
No.
Well, let's just number
Yes.
No.
Don't encourage them.
As chairman of the party, you represent the platform of the party, so yes.
So you will deviate?
No, I would not deviate.
No.
Sorry, the
Do you
question
have a
has been
question?
Yes, I have a question,
Please do.
and I'll be very quiet. All of the panel members, I have one question for you. Where do you stand on the Ukrainian war?
Good question.
And many Republicans that I sat with back when I first joined the town committee in Andover, many of them were for that wonderful war back in February. Answer me
Okay, thank
quietly.
you for this question.
Who's
Please
for the
answer
Ukrainian war?
Everyone in very, very quick. Please.
Ukraine has every right to defend its sovereign territory.
You're not answering my question.
Would you
And-
support-
You're not
I
answering.
support
Are
the
you
sovereign right.
for the United States putting $100
That's a
billion
different question.
into Ukraine?
That's a different question.
That's the question I want to answer.
That's the question you want to answer. Should we put money into Ukraine anymore? That's your
We've
question.
put $100 billion already. Are you for that?
I am supportive of the United States supporting the Ukraine in their war, yes.
You don't have my vote. Go ahead.
Let them
Who do you
answer.
say, sir?
Let them answer.
No, I just asked her. I tell her. Go ahead, sir.
Not a
You
penny
for
more,
the
not-
flag. You for the flag.
Let them answer. Please let them answer.
Go ahead.
Order.
Let me please answer the question.
Please.
Not a penny more for Ukraine, and I
Whoa,
demand that the
whoa, were you for it
Please let
back
them
in,
answer.
were you back in February, were you for it?
Come on,
Can
come
I please
on.
answer the question? Because I think you can get there if you let me answer the question.
Oh, thank you,
Not a penny more for Ukraine.
good.
I implore the new Congress to demand an audit of all of the money that has gone there.
Good.
And I do feel for the people of Ukraine because I do feel
We
that
all
they have the
feel for
right
them.
to defend themselves.
How about the people in Texas? Do you feel for them?
Absolutely I do.
Oh, yes.
Border security is
That's
one of
one,
my most
that's the eastern border of Ukraine.
This is a moderator's meeting, not ours.
Yeah.
It's a
Okay.
moderator's meeting. let her
The
know.
next person.
Yes, I think I'm getting good at this. No and no.
Good.
I'm against it.
I'm against it.
The real answer is, where were you in February? Where was all these people in February?
I've opposed it since day one.
In February.
During the governor's debate, the first one, Maura Healy had two hammers that she hit Jeff Deal with. That he was Trumper and he was pro-life. The Massachusetts is an abortion state. How do we deal with that with a pro-life platform?
I think we are the party that can balance women's rights and infants' rights. And I think our voice is absolutely critical in the post-Roe v. Wade era and discussion. So I would absolutely think that we can be a party of that discussion. In terms of, the other one was, what was the other one, pro-life? Trumper. You know, because he supported Trump, why wouldn't he support Trump as a Republican? I mean, I think that's just, I think people will hammer people on Trump all the time. But the reality is if Trump was your candidate, then that's who you supported. I don't think that's not an issue.
I've told this to Jeff, so I don't have a problem saying it in public. I don't think Jeff handled the Trump endorsement the right way. Thank you, it's quite an honor to be endorsed by a former president, but let me tell you what I'm gonna do for Massachusetts. That problem would have gone too far. So there's nothing wrong with being endorsed by the former president. I've said tonight, I'm pro-life. I view abortion as baby killing. I don't stray from that. But we're never going to fight abortion in this state. We're never going to be credible on it until we get more people elected. And go back to my common thing. Until we build that bench, we can't fight that fight. It's not that we don't care about that fight, but we can't fight it until we get more people elected.
I've got a very personal story, and I've literally never, I'll be quick.
Chris, I don't think it's possible.
No, well,
Your track record indicates otherwise.
well, let me just say, okay, my birth mother was 17. My birth father was 49. I was put up for adoption. I was born in 1964. If I was born in 1974, do you think I would be here?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Good chance, no.
Roe v. Wade legalized abortion in 1973. Okay, so for me, abortion is a very personal issue. Never told that story before anywhere in the world. And let me just say, the way we have to get to that issue is we have to change the culture. We don't have a culture of life. We have a culture of death, and we see the consequences every day on our streets. So we've got to change the culture. And let me just say this, as a person who's worked in a lot of campaigns, and I've done the research on this, in 1970, Ted Kennedy was pro-life.
Oh, come on.
Every Catholic politician was pro-life. Jesse Jackson was pro-life. Bill Clinton was pro-life. And over time, the culture has changed, and we are where we now have partial birth abortion, late-term abortion, all kinds of crazy abortion policies that are more liberal than any place in the world except China and North Korea. We've got to change the culture. That's hard work. I don't think it's impossible, but we've gotta put our shoulder to the grindstone and do that. On the Trump question, that's a simple one that Charlie Baker frankly didn't understand. All you say is, I support the candidate of the Republican Party. Not that hard. You say that, and then as John said, you move on. We recognize that because of conventional wisdom, they've made Trump into a monster, but simple answer, support the Republican candidate. The end, and move on. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm pro-life, and I'm a big supporter of President Trump. I think the one thing as chairman of the party, we have to recognize President Trump's popularity in the state is about 32%. So we have to recognize we have to run on issues that resonate with the people. And I think if we do that and energize the independent base in Massachusetts, we can be very successful talking about Trump issues.
It's a difficult question that you asked, the life piece. I already mentioned to you before what I did in the 2022 election, right? I supported a Democrat who was pro-life over a George Soros candidate who was not. So I think I've affirmed my position on that. As far as chairman of the party though, I want to say basically what Jim had said. As chair, you've got to recognize that we're in Massachusetts and we need to win elections. And if that, it goes district to district, right? It's that individual candidate. And so the parties, I don't believe that, so if the party platform is life and we have a pro-choice Republican candidate, what are we gonna do, not support that person? Right, so it's tough, but we need to win elections. And so until we change the culture, we can't be, you know, I'm not gonna throw you out of my home because you have a difference of opinion with me. And then when it comes to Trump, he was the duly elected president twice, right? So so what happens is that you just, and he'll be elected again a third time, correct? So it's a non-issue. You gotta stand up for your beliefs.
So we have a huge problem because the time is running. So I would put the question to the audience if would want to stay or not. Say aye if you want to stay.
Aye.
Say no.
Nay.
First of all, thank you all for being engaged in Republican politics in your community. And thank you for helping candidates, and thank you for coming out tonight to hear us. And if you are, I have at the back of the room a letter that has my platform outlined on it, and you are welcome to take it. I hope you will take a copy with you, and a bio sketch as well. And you please help me out. I also have a website that has my platform outlined on it. It's elizabethchildsmd.com, and I hope you will go to that. And then my only ask really is, if you like what you heard from me, I would really appreciate it if you'd call your state committee member and tell him or her, and her, actually you should have two, one of each, that you would appreciate if they would consider me for their vote. And I also would ask that you let me know if there are ideas you have for me, things that would strengthen me and make me a better chair if I were elected. And my telephone number, my home number is 617-734-4026. I invite you to call me, ask me questions, push me on issues, and certainly give me your best ideas. And I'd love to hear from what your vision and ideas are for the party going forward. So it's been a pleasure to be here tonight, and I really thank all of you for your engagement, and I hope that I get a chance to work with you in the future, if not as the chair, but as the Brooklyn Republican Town Committee chair. And hope you're well. Thank you.
Can we get that phone number one more time, please?
It's 617-734-4026. And my email is bethchildsmd@gmail.com. And my website is elizabethchildsmd.com. And thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
The biggest takeaway that I hope everybody takes away from this is that the Republican Party is not dead, no matter what you read in the newspapers in Massachusetts. We're at a crossroads right now, and we have an opportunity to do better, and we will do better. I was a Republican long before I moved to Massachusetts. Like I said, I was a Republican at birth. I'm going to be a Republican tomorrow. I'm going to be a Republican on February 1st, no matter what happens in the election. I'm always going to believe my core value because all politics is local. We need to focus on the local level. I'm not going away February 1st if I'm not successful or if the election doesn't go the way that I want it to go. We need to be committed to working towards this. We're opponents here today.
Federal structure. I will implement an aggressive agenda with your assistance to get the GOP out of the ditch and on the path to victory. I do not believe that the state chairmanship should be a part-time job for someone with other priorities during the day. Fixing the GOP isn't a hobby you engage in on nights and weekends. Every person in the Commonwealth who makes the bold choice to register as a Republican deserves more from the leader of the Mass GOP. I believe rebuilding the GOP is a full-time job. If you choose me to be your chairman, I will work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year to elect Republicans to local, county, state, and federal office. I will be at your town committees. I will be recruiting candidates with you. Again, please, if you're not on the state committee, contact your state committee. And if you are on the state committee, Jim, speaking to you, I would love your vote on January 31st. My name is Christopher Lyon. My email address is christopherlyon626@gmail.com. My cell phone number is 917-721-0929. And I had someone say, well, you have a 917 number. That's from my Rudy Giuliani days. That's a Manhattan cell phone number. I've had it for more than 25 years. And I guess if I become chairman, I will probably change it. But, because people go crazy, 617, 917, but anyway. Thank you for your time. It's been a delight meeting you, seeing you, and seeing activism here in Middlesex County. Thank you.
So folks, since 2019, I have worked tirelessly as the chairman of this party. I have visited every corner of the state. This week alone, I was in Worcester, I was in Attleboro, I was in Pittsburgh, I was in Sturbridge last night, and tonight I am in Carlisle. And I love meeting people like you. And let me make it perfectly clear, it is not the grassroots that's the problem. And I understand that better than anybody. The reason $12,000 at the Capitol Grill. They set up limited liability companies where they funneled money away from the party into these limited liability companies to the tune of $600,000. They put 28-year-old managers in charge and filtered the money out. That is unfair to every person here and every grassroots activist. So it's got nothing to do with the grassroots. It has everything to do with the higher-ups. And I caught them. And that's why you're reading about me every day in the paper. When I ran for re-election in January 3rd of 2021, I said, you won't see puff pieces about me in the Boston Globe. I was right. I was right. They hate me. The reason is because I will stand up and fight for you, and I urge you to call your state committee folks, and please, one more year, we will clean this party up, and we will build a new future in Massachusetts. Thank you all very much.
Jim is a hard act to follow each time, right? But, all right, I started out this evening saying that I believed that I was the most qualified person to be chair. And I still believe that to be true. And I say that because of my background. It's my grassroots activist background from 1986, when I was 15 years old, going forward to my professional background. And it's the blending of the two of those skills that I could take to the state party. The state party does need somebody like this guy here, but the state party is an organization, and an organization needs somebody who understands operations. I'm not saying you don't. The state party is somebody that knows how to run a business. I'm not saying you don't on that either too. But somebody who's operational, somebody who understands the financial side of it, somebody who understands the marketing, the branding, and more importantly today, the technology piece. And I'm that technology marketer, that person who goes into organizations, sometimes runs those organizations. I've bought a number of startups, spun them around and sold them. I've created my own businesses, grown them, sold them. One of the commitments that I have, and this is a first here, so I hope it's being recorded and we'll get this out. And it's an unlikelihood because of the nature of the party. But if all of the candidates agree to step out and I win on the first ballot, I am going to give the seed money of $100,000 to the Mass Republican Party. Right off the bat, I'll write that check, I'll write it on February 1st. Yeah, I'll be the CEO of that organization, and I'll put $100,000 of my own money straight into the party to build this party, grow this party, develop that software that I told you about that is necessary to activate from the grassroots on up, or from the state committee members on down. Unfortunately, though, I am probably the least likely person to have that happen. As you know, the way that the voting takes place is that, last man out in each particular round. Any one of us are going to need 2 people to support us in each one of those rounds. My time's up there? All right. Do I have 30 seconds still?
Yeah.
No, I don't even have the 30 seconds.
Finish.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
I need you to call your state committee members. I'm not throwing any shade to this person or anyone else in the race, but if you want me to keep going forward and fighting at state committee, I need you to call state committee members and at least get me those 2 people in each round to keep putting my name in so that I can talk about these issues before the state party. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your contribution to the party and to the country.